Musically speaking, that's the program. Good afternoon to you. A special musically speaking for you today. Going to be talking about funding and financing culture. And we have one of the best to speak about that topic, talking about Dr. Debra Hickling, famous name, and she's somebody who has been associated with media, with theater, with culture. And her passion is to really see the cultural industries be a more integral part of national development. And she thinks that there might be some deficiencies on the policy level. And we'll be talking about issues related to that. And then, come 1 o'clock, we're going to be talking with a real great in terms of the music. You don't get greater than that. Talking about a man I call the great. In fact, I call him Lowell the Great. And you will know who that is when 1 o'clock comes. So it's musically speaking. I think Lloyd is there, He's somewhere there, Lloyd Stanbury. I think he's somewhere there, somewhere. And we'll be talking with him. So, without further ado, let's hear what is on Dr. Hickling's mind musically. Natty Dub It in a Zimbabwe. This song was actually a candidate for the national anthem of Zimbabwe. Believe it or not, Bob Marley. Big tune. So we have with us today Dr. Debra Hickling Gordon. I left out the last part there before, and I think I need to make sure I don't miss it out again. Now, this is somebody I know a long time. I know of her passion, I know of her commitment, I know of her knowledge of the cultural industries. And I think it would be fair to say, Lloyd, she shares our passion about the funding of cultural projects, cultural industry, and therefore I think we're going to have a very nice discussion here today.
How are you, Lloyd? How are you, Clyde?
I am well, Debra.
It's so wonderful to be here, and to be here in the same room as, Lowell the Great.
Yes, Lowell the Great. Lowell the Great. I don't hear Lloyd. What happened to him? I don't hear him. Yes. Well, we're moving on, Debra.
Yes.
And this is one of your passions, and you have argued on every fora that you have been able to appear.
Them got tired for see my face.
Well,
because I think I think it's important to say that when you have a conviction and you back that conviction up with research and information, and you are clear that there are directions that are not being taken that need to be examined, then I think it gives you, that platform. It gives you an opportunity to take on that soapbox and be justified in doing it. And that's why Zimbabwe is a very important song for me. It's a song that I open every single presentation that I do locally and globally, because literally what it's saying is that we need to make a decision as countries of the global south, as small island developing states, about the directions that we are taking for our own development. And that must include our culture. That must include who we are and what we produce of ourselves. And so it's a great conviction. And yeah, you won't stop hearing about it.
No, but the thing is that despite the fact that culture has given Jamaica and the Caribbean such prominence, in fact, one could say disproportionate prominence, the thing is that it seems to be given short shrift in terms of the policy formulation process.
Right.
And the question that I would want to ask is, why would something that would seem to be such a great contributor to or potentially also, well, it has been a great contributor and potentially could be an even greater contributor, we have not given it the kind of respect and support that we perhaps should.
Okay. I think there are a number of reasons for that. I think that there are people who have variable levels of understanding and knowledge of the cultural and creative industries. So there are a set of people within the space, the decision making space, that literally do not understand and do not have a clear kind of vision as to what is possible. I remember when we were doing some work in the public sector and we went to a very high level official, and he was an older gentleman, and he said to me, "Debra, you're coming to me again with this little singing and dancing." And there were a number of us around a table, a large conference table in a large public sector entity. And we did all we could to kind of hold on to the table, to not jump over the table, to kind of kind of inform him properly in a probably very physical way. But there are people who literally think that it's a little singing and dancing. So that's one level. And there's another level, set of people who move very quickly towards exploitation. So here is something that we can exploit. We can exploit it for its value. We can exploit it when it comes to talking about the brand. We can, say a lot about it and so on. And there's even levels of exploitation when it comes to actually the process of production and ownership, and all the levels of exploitation that we know happens in the cultural and creative industries. I don't talk with water in my mouth. I am my father's child. and so there's that level where people are comfortable and people don't need to change things because they're okay and they're doing the things in the ways that they need to do it. And then there are others who literally are not clear about how to connect the dots. So they have this bit of information and that bit of information. I am amazed at the amount of research that exists within the government space and data that really just requires somebody to align the pieces to be able to put together a fulsome picture that can connect the dots, and so that we can very clearly move in a direction based on a holistic plan. How hard could that be?
Yeah, because the question that one would ask is, for example, the posture of traditional capital to the cultural and creative sectors. And we're going to have to go into the definitional issues as we go along. But that approach, I mean, many times people will say to me, but Clyde, the people in the cultural and the creative music business, they're not organized. And I said to them, but I don't understand what you're talking about. Because this level of disorganization, people from outside and abroad have been able to interface with it and do so successfully.
Absolutely.
So what is it that is the problem here? Why are you unable to embrace this? Are you able to interact with this while outsiders are able to do this successfully?
I remember one time I was in a class with Barry Shavans, the late Barry Shavans, and we were talking about the family. And he was telling us that anthropologists across the world were saying that Jamaican families have no structure. And he has had to argue at the time that Jamaican families may not have a traditional structure, but it has a structure all of its own. And this is true of the cultural and creative industries. It may not be a traditional structure, but it has a workable structure. It is for us to understand the structure and to be able to understand why our music is marketed through sound systems and not necessarily, through
radio stations.
Why our in other countries of the world, the piracy is a part of their process of distribution. We have to understand what those systems are, and we have to put them to work in ways that work for us. Why this issue of the informal sector is something that we really need to look at in a whole other way, because if 49% of our cultural and creative industries practitioners exist within the informal sector, then clearly there's something we need to be doing to not only to be trying to bring them into the formal sector, but also to be trying to deal with them at the places that they are, so that that transition to the formal sector is almost a natural transition. You, by the time you look around, people are registered because it's just something that you do.
But you think there is the issue of trust?
That's a huge issue, and actually many studies have come up with that notion, the issue of mistrust, and that people and that goes back to the days of slavery, and actually some of it is engendered, so people pit each other against each other, so that there isn't a level of trust. But that is why now there are a number of organizations that are emerging. I'm working with an organization now called the South South Collective, and we're actually doing an investment forum this week that is speaking about issues of bringing the collective together. There are a number of other organizations that are also doing that, in which cultural and creative practitioners have begun to work together, business to business, have begun to come together, in the associations, cultural and creative associations are on the rise slowly again. Remember, we had earlier 30 years ago, we had JFM, when JFM was a robust organization and representative. Well, some of those organizations are starting to come back. So the structures are starting to take shape again. And so it's an interesting place to be at the moment in the cultural and creative industries, to see the transformation happening.
One of the things that has plagued the cultural and the creative industries is the whole question of definition.
Yeah. And it's a huge issue. And sometimes when we do that lecture on definition up at UA, where I'm a lecturer, the students kind of roll their eyes and say, why do we need to learn this? And then the answer is very clear. If you don't know what it is you're seeking to measure, or if you don't know what it is you're seeking to create policy for, then you'll never be able to, you'll never be able to
wrap your mind
around it, because you don't know what it is
and what you're going to allocate.
Right. And what you allocate to what. So is it a cultural industry? Are we placing emphasis on those things that are intrinsically coming from the spirit and the collective consciousness of the Jamaican people or the Caribbean people? Or are we looking at those things, the creative elements,
which are IP related,
which are scalable? And so are we doing a little of both? And then what is this thing about entertainment? There is this new addition to the definition of entertainment, which some people interpret to be the bigger entertainment, the capital rich side of cultural and creative industries, the big parties, the big festivals, the big entertainment activities, where the capital goes. That's where the money goes. And there's a level of resentment too about the allocation of resources with regards to with regards to larger and smaller organizations. And then there's a fact of what sectors are we talking about? Yeah, so there are three levels of activities that need to happen as a part of the policy process. First of all, we need to name it, and we need to be clear what the name means and why we're using the name entertainment, culture, creative, arts, because there are issues with all of them. Then we need to define it. What do we mean by that? And then we need to classify and prioritize those sectors. So we've identified, as a part of our study we did in March through a group called Networks of Culture, 20 operational sectors, subsectors. So we say that the cultural and creative sector is a holistic element. This is one huge monolithic thing that we call the cultural and creative sector. And then we break down the classifications to 20 subsectors, at least 40 industries, because each subsector has 3 or 4 industries. So like the music subsector would have the recording industry, the performance industry, the publishing industry, etc., etc., etc. Sound systems could probably fall under that as a whole industry all of its own. The audiovisual subsector would have film, television, broadcasting, radio, etc. So if we're talking about 40 subsectors, and within those 40 subsectors, we have at least 2 or 3 industries under each one. We're looking at hundreds of value chains, and each one has a different value chain, Clyde. So each one operates in a different way to the other. Each one ascribes value to itself, earns money in a different way. Advertising earns money in a different way to public relations. Public relations earns money in a different way to film. Film earns money in a different way to radio. And so if we're talking about these hundreds of means of earning revenue, these hundreds of centers of revenue, why is it we're not able to make a case globally, nationally, regionally, that this is something we need to be investing in? This is something that we need to be serious about. But it starts with the definition. First of all, we need to paint that picture. We need to be clear about what that picture is. And we also need to be on the same page with the picture. We can't have 6 ministries, each with a different definition, each with a different nomenclature. Each one call it something else. We also did a mapping of that. We saw that the Ministry of Entertainment, Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport calls it the ECCI, the Entertainment, Cultural and Creative Industries. The Ministry of Commerce, Trade, the ministry, Minister Hill's ministry. Industry, Investment and Commerce. Mm-hmm. They have 2 or 3 different names. So JAMPRO calls it one thing, JBDC calls it one thing, and the ministry itself, their trade documents call it another thing.
So what you need is an aggregator. You're going back to the question of connecting the dots, because you cannot have a holistic kind of approach to this kind of development.
There are many different pieces, and it just needs someone to bring it together and paint the picture in a way that is logical, in a way that all parties can get it and understand it, and in a way that around which there is consensus, Clyde, because that's the hardest thing, to be able to. We may not agree on everything, but if we can create a structure around which we can agree on most things, at least the principles, then we can move the process forward.
There is the question of measurement, because that flows from the issue of definition.
Yes.
And one of the challenges that we've had in the cultural and the creative sector that we talk about, which is some people would say is amorphous and nebulous and very unclear, is the question of measurement. And I would go further. From a legislative standpoint, we have moved, for example, to the phase where we now are supposed to, in principle, be able to accept intellectual property as collateral.
Security interest in intellectual property, yeah.
But I would want to know which person has been able to go to the bank and secure some money, a loan or such, using that. I mean, it might have happened. I mean, I'm just saying.
I got an email the other day to say that they're actually doing a pilot project now where I haven't gotten the details yet. I responded to say that I'm interested and I'm waiting to hear what's happening, but apparently there's a pilot where they're trying to look at how to put the SIPS legislation to work. But I want us to connect the issue of classification and definition to that issue that you're talking about, measurement. So the first thing that Capital tells us is that there's no research. They don't have any information. They don't know what the cultural and creative industries are. They don't know how much it contributes to GDP. They don't know what each sector makes and so on. But the reason why it's important to do the defining right? And the naming, and to be clear about what it is we're going to be doing, is that if we are to identify our priority sectors and we are to say, all right, let us then look at what the value chains of those are and start one by one in the way that Jampro has done recently. Yeah, Jampro has done a study on 3 different areas: film, animation, and music, and the results are astounding, actually.
Yeah.
But if we were able to actually identify each one of the sectors that that we want to look at, then we can find out a way of measuring each one of those sectors and doing the economic analysis to be able to determine what the numbers are that we need to find out, and then we can shop those one at a time, 3 at a time. Jampro has done 3. JBDC is doing a broader study to look at all, but we're still not clear on what sectors they're looking at, because there's a set of definitions in one place and another set of definitions in another.
You are okay, so you're talking about definition, and that's a significant challenge. But I want to talk a little bit about the value chain, because you keep referring to the value chain, which is essential to our understanding of where the earning potential lies.
Okay.
And one of the things I have discovered is that the most lucrative segments of the value chain, particularly music, really resides abroad.
Where that's where the money is made. So I want to make one point before, or which is connected to the issue of the value chain. All of this that we're talking about might sound like it come out of a textbook, and those are things you talk about at the university, or if you work in an office where you are a financier and so on. It doesn't mean anything to the individual who is in the sector. And I want to say to that individual who's in the sector that we are talking about the work that you are doing. So when you go to the studio, you are a part of the value chain. When you take up that camera and take a shot, when you post something on the internet, yeah, you are creating value, and you are adding value to the various processes that we're talking about. So what we want to do is to ensure that we can count the inputs of every single individual who is doing that kind of work, who they may not even value it themselves. Me just take a photograph, me just sing a tune, me just so and so. But we want to be able to determine, because every time somebody goes into a studio, they're utilizing value. $2,000 hour, $10,000 hour, whatever it is, you know. So we also need to make the linkages with these ideas that kind of sound airy-fairy, and the human beings who are doing the work every single day and are not even aware that they are. That's a critical part of the linkages that need to be made.
And why the issue of measurement and the issue of definition is so important is that, for example, if I am seeking financing and I wanted to use my publishing as collateral, the fact that there is not the capacity currently to determine or to value my asset would mean that I would not be able to secure that financing.
When I was working at the Office of the Prime Minister with the Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, one day an artist of great acclaim, now deceased, walked into the office to visit her, and he brought her a painting and he gave it to her, and he said to her, "Sister P, this particular painting, if I take it to the bank as a person who created it, I painted it myself and I have 20 of them at home, I cannot use it as collateral. But if you buy it and you have 20 of them, you can take that collection to the bank and you can use it as collateral." And it was one of the things that kind of prompted that legislation to move a little bit more quickly, because she was able to then get a clear understanding of what is happening with real practitioners with regards to the work, the value that they are creating that they cannot negotiate around. And that's one of the things that investors, and this is why the conference that we're having is really so important. There needs to be a means by which investors can upskill individuals from the shop floor when somebody walks in and is looking for a loan, right up to the executives who are creating strategy, so that they have a clear understanding of the 100 value chains. That when somebody comes in and says that they are a creative or they work in the music sector, it's not just one monolithic set of activities, but there are actually these 100 value chains that they now need to negotiate.
But this is part of the thing, because the language of commerce is different from the language of creative production.
Absolutely.
And what seems to happen is that those who speak the language of commerce do not understand the language of creative production. And it seems as if one of the challenges that we have is to find the appropriate interlocutors, the people
I was gonna say it's no longer an excuse, because an entire study was done in Africa, right? An entire study that was done in Africa that identified a new set of organizations called intermediaries.
1 second. We're going to go to a break. Musically speaking. Musically speaking, that's the program. Today we're talking funding of cultural projects with none other than Dr. Debra Hickling Gordon, and she has a lot to say about this matter. She's very passionate and knowledgeable about it. And I was wondering, where was Lloyd Stanbury in all of this? But I hear he's somewhere there. Lloyd, are you there? I mean,
yes, I'm here, Clyde, and I've been listening, attentively to Debbie. And as I told her the other day, she has a lot of patience. Yeah?
He did tell me that, but and as I say, I got tired of seeing my face. Like, this is it. This is what I do. This is what I believe in, and for as long as there's breath, then
yeah. But I in listening to what you have just explained, I reflected a little bit on the number of studies that have been done on the cultural and creative industries in Jamaica, and in particular the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if there's any other sector that has been studied as much as the cultural and creative industries have been studied in Jamaica and reported on, and recommendations made over the last 30, 40 years.
Yes, you are perfectly right.
There probably isn't, so what exactly is the issue? I mean, we are granted, cultural and creative industries relatively new to the world, but there are other countries that have been able to put in place policies, have been able to educate the practitioners sufficiently to allow their industries to function and thrive. Some of them, doing the very things that we create, some of them creating the kind of music that we create.
I give you a joke. In 2008, I went to Ghana because when I was doing my PhD, I was doing a comparative between media in Jamaica and media in Ghana. And when I went to Ghana, nobody knew. All the officials, and I interviewed people at the highest levels of the organizations. None of the officials knew the term creative industries. It's not something they interfaced with at all in 2008. Last year, there was an activity that took place through the ministry, and not only had they completed their policy, they're moving on to round 2. They're in the process of sorting through a number of the issues that the policy didn't cover, and they're moving into, having done the year of return and all of those exciting things that came out of the process in the last maybe 5 years. So you are perfectly correct. Belize, who would have thought that Belize would have the gold standard in cultural policy in the Caribbean? Yeah, that they would be having these huge conferences in Mexico that just finished last week, the huge cultural policy conference, Monday called. These things are being spoken about globally. There is more information than if you Google cultural and creative industries, you now can get information, down to the thematic level in ways that it didn't exist before. I cannot imagine. And the irony is that we hear that we don't have enough data.
Yeah, but I'm going to ask this question to you and to Lloyd. These countries that we are talking about, so I mean, Ghana, now we have Stone Boy and, and these things. But I'm saying in a short time, are you saying that you think that the growth of industries in places like Ghana and maybe Belize, are you saying that you see them moving apace consistent with what you consider to be the level of investment that has been made in these societies?
Well, you see, it's kind of cyclical.
Because people will say, but I mean, I wonder if we here in Jamaica need that kind of intervention because we're already a world force.
The investment follows the organization, follows the investment, follows the organization. Mm-hmm. It's cyclical. Mm-hmm. And so it's clear that so you spoke about trust. There are issues of confidence. One of the issues that came up a lot in the studies that we've done about financing has to do with the notion that the financiers they literally do not believe that people will be able to consistently contribute to their loan payments, that they're not going to be able to keep up.
So what some academics would call the stochastic nature of culture, in other words, the unpredictability.
Absolutely, the fact that we work in a gig economy.
So that is one of the drawbacks. But then don't you think that with a little bit of creativity, because, for example, the music and the film industries, they have been able to devise funding modalities. Globally. I mean, that's how, venture capital, for example, is a way that has been used in its varied forms.
In Nigeria now, the banks literally have funding instruments specifically designed to fit the value chain of cinema in Africa. Right. In Los Angeles, Renee Robinson was telling me the banks there, they have departments for the cultural and creative industries because they see the value. They note what the return on investment can be, and they have designed their processes to be able to fit in with the value chains and the supply chains. Another thing that we have an issue with is distribution across all of our cultural and creative industries. And you alluded to it when you were saying that the greatest element of value.
Yeah, we're primary producers.
Yes.
For almost most things that we produce, whether it be bauxite, banana, whatever it is, coffee. What happens is that the people who package and distribute, they go off with the lion's share.
But
that's
Lloyd, and again, to come to what Lloyd had said, this has been in every study for the past 30 years, that we need to be moving to expand the distribution and to partner with capital to do that, because the distribution ends requires guarantees. That's the part where we need capital to be standing with us to say, all right, we will guarantee X and Y because of the issues of demand. Cultural and creative industries are not demand-driven industries. That simply means that I don't have to go to a movie tonight, but I have to eat dinner tonight. Right? I have to eat something. So I have a ready demand for what I'm going to eat tonight. But I make a conscious decision about whether I'm going to go to a movie tonight. So and that is dealt with on the distribution end. Yeah, so we need to be able to create those models so that we can put the financing in place so that there are guarantees that so that we can be doing the production up front.
Debbie, do you think, because as we have both agreed, we have studied the industry, we have provided recommendations to policymakers, to some extent to the investment sector, um, but the other player, the creatives, do you think that there needs to be more investment in educating the creatives
Absolutely.
about who we are first and foremost as a people, and the value of our culture? Because I find that we have no shortage of talent and creativity in Jamaica. No shortage, an abundance of that. And because we have this abundance of creativity and talent, we have had a very good track record of individual success. Yeah, because there's so much to choose from. Yeah, and we have been able to create the Bob Marleys and the
Coffees
Jimmy
and the
Clicksons,
Slide
coffee and
Dunbar.
everything, and the slide on bars. We've been able to create those, no problem. Individual success. But when you
despite
get
in
despite
in
this,
spite
exactly,
of
in spite of
yes,
obstacles.
yes.
But when you look at it on a macro level, where we're trying to move the industry as a body forward, I think both the policymakers and the investors are, and I hear them say it, and I do understand what they're saying. They have challenges in interfacing with the creatives.
You, you,
Partly because the creatives are kind of weak sometimes in collective representation. But
Um,
I think there is a problem
there are
with
some other things
their,
that are happening there too. So
yeah.
it's been 30 years as we've been talking about. There are those who have fallen off and said, "Listen, I'm doing my thing." Yeah, I remember talking to somebody like Robert Livingston and him literally saying as a part of our study, "Listen, I'm not looking left or right. There are things I need to do, and I'm going to do it." I remember when we started the first entertainment advisory board and we invited Tony Rebel to the board. Him said to me, "Debbie, I will come, I will come. But listen to me, a music me making up. That's my livelihood. I'm not coming to do no holy for long talking." Right? So there are people who have literally said, I'm moving beyond this. There are even those now, we now have 4 cultural and creative firms on the junior stock exchange. So they have sorted themselves out, they have capitalized themselves, and they've moved beyond an examination of policy. Policy would help them, clearly. But as far as they're concerned, they are now moving, in the direction of finding the capital that they require to move their processes forward. When I think of people like Spice and Shensia and that whole cadre of artists who is not looking to the government for anything, and that also came out in our study in March, that there is no incentive that certain people within the cultural and creative industries at a particular level now require, that would bring them in, that would cause them have to join a registry or so on. But then there are those that are below the line. And those are the ones that we need to be talking about. The 49% who have identified that they're earning under $100,000 or $200,000 a year in the Northern City study. So it's that catchment now that we need to be looking at to do the education that you're talking about, to clearly determine the value of what they're doing.
well,
Yeah.
I would want to add, because Lloyd speaks of education, and it's not only a question of the education nor levels of the artists themselves, which sometimes informs who they choose as management. Because a big part of this equation is management. If I have the right kind of management that is knowledgeable and well connected, then value is created. If I don't, then we have a problem. The question is, in terms of our policy direction, what are we doing to engender greater knowledge, greater awareness around or within that sector?
But if you
and
even
that
think
group?
about it, it's that too is an investable activity.
Exactly.
You
exactly.
know, so if we identify that we have a problem, and Lloyd has been very clear that we need to be able to provide greater information and knowledge and insight and understanding about what it is we're producing, and I think of organizations like I Create, that has literally put their money where their mouth is and gone out and found the financing in order to try to train people so that they are, you know, in a better position to do that is a kind of investment that is now required so that to do it's now not necessarily the investment directly into the creative, but into the organization and facilitation of groups of creatives.
And I think this is very important because the education has to come at two levels. It has to come for the investment class to understand the possibilities and the opportunities, and it has to come with the creative class where they understand also how to interact and secure with capital and secure investment.
Which is why this conference that we're talking about, ICEC 22, ICEC 22, we're talking about investment readiness and investor readiness, because we are clear that there's not only financial inclusion that's required, and not only financial literacy that is required, but there's creative inclusion and creative literacy that is required. The financiers require creative literacy. They need to know that when somebody comes in on their shop floor and says they're in advertising, it's not the same as when somebody comes in and say they're in the music business, and then you lump them into the cultural and creative industries and think that you're going to provide the same sort of instruments for them, because their needs are different. So that's what we're trying to say. But you see, even getting the investment to do these particular things, and I guess it's a notion of getting people to understand what they don't know.
Yeah, so it's a lot has to do with public education too.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
a lot of people will not understand. For example, if we don't have discussions like these, there might be people in the investment class who don't understand the possibilities, even when the examples abound, and you see what Rihanna has done, and you see what Dr. Dre has done, and all of those things. You still don't, Bob Marley, and Sean Paul, and you see Shaggy, and you see all of these examples, and although they're staring you in the face, you still don't understand the dynamics of this kind of industry, and so you
I give you an example.
You keep your distance.
There was an ad in the paper. This is what Lloyd said to me. I am patient over. There was an ad in the paper for a bank that was lending money to creatives and said it by name. Creatives come and get money.
Oh, you never tell me about that.
And they went on to list clothing store, craft store, makeup line. So they're dealing with the retail. They're dealing with the manufacturing sector and the retail sector. So instead of going to the primary producers, the musicians, the dancers, the singers, the sports managers, the sports people, and it was really a matter of knowledge. I don't think that they were, I really am clear that they were unaware that the retail side of it, when you get to selling it, it's now no longer creative because it's already been created, right? And now we're mass producing it. So it's a different thing.
But it might fall under cultural industries.
Well, it could, depending on what it is.
What it is, yes.
Yeah, but if you're going to have a craft store that's selling Chinese craft, then that's not going to help the creatives in Jamaica.
It's another culture.
Right. Right. So, and I think if the bankers and investors themselves would kind of, open up their minds and say, yes, these are things that we really do need to understand. And if we were to come to understand them, even at an academic level, that the decisions that they make would be different. The ways in which they package their investment would be different. They would be investing perhaps in the distribution side and looking to find people to develop distribution arms for these 40 or 60 sets of products. 60 sets of products and services.
No, but it goes back again to the question of knowledge and maybe the role the government needs to play in this. And we've said you don't maybe need to fund the creator directly in some instances, but maybe what the role that government maybe needs to play, a more active one is in directing people to the sources and the opportunities, because there are numerous sources and opportunities, but the fact is we're not connecting the dots.
It's about connecting the dots. That's the greatest deficiency at the moment. It is because putting the pieces together.
And we also, it's a very important thing for us to remember in all of this discussion that there are some aspects of our culture which might not have immediate commercial value
or commercial value at all.
But they are essential to our sense of identity.
Yes.
But even then, the museum sector globally is probably amongst the most visited and profitable sectors in the cultural and creative industries globally. People go to museums. And they will pay to go to museums.
And one of the things.
It is not. It's not the financial value that is important in the understanding of museums. And again, that's another kind of mindset. It's mindset change that needs to take place at the level of financing. It's a whole new world that we're going into.
No, and I speak, and while I agree with you on the museum thing, because one of the things is that museums themselves have undergone a transformation and have used modern technology to enhance their appeal.
They had to during the pandemic.
Right? And one of the things is that now museums are not these old fusty places.
No.
They use holograms and all the different...
And they're repositories of intellectual property.
Right.
So their value... This is another very interesting thing that we learned from... This was from Tyrone Wilson at it's how we record the accounting too for cultural and creative industries. So Tyrone said he was able to transform his books by recording what used to be an expense. So if I'm going to hire you,
you're talking about Tyrone from iCreate.
From iCreate. If I'm going to hire you to create a film, and whichever part of the value chain you're going to be in, and I record it on my books as an expense, that's one thing. But if I record what you have provided as an asset,
yeah, you represent it differently.
It's represented differently.
Even how we deal with issues of depreciation, intellectual property assets. Many people don't understand how to deal with those matters, and so we have a lot of value. We have a lot of assets that we don't know how to deal with appropriately. That's another discussion, Deborah.
That's why we have Wafa Belgachem coming in.
So when is this again?
October 5 to 7. You need to go to the South Collective.
And what? That's online.
Yes, you can on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And go to any of those platforms and you'll get information about this conference where international people from the Africa Exim Bank are going to be coming to talk at this conference. We're going to have people like Wafa Belgachem, who's actually coming in at this very, very moment, and she was named twice amongst Africa's most influential people, and she's a financial expert in cultural and creative industries. She's coming in straight from Mexico, where the UNESCO Secretary General had invited her to participate. And so these are some real heavy hitters who, if you don't believe us,
I'll try and come. I'm going to have to go online and see what because I take your word for it, Deborah.
If you don't believe us, come and listen to the global experts who know where the value lies and knows how to get it. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Dr. Debra Hickling Gordon.
The hour finished already?
1 hour gone already. You see, and we're going into another hour. I want you to stay with me if you can.
Oh, yes, man.
Right? And Lloyd is there because you see, the person I'm about to introduce is somebody who Lloyd reveres, because they have a long association. So, and it's somebody I have the highest regard for. A man I call Lowell the Great. So, let's just take a break, catch our breath, and come right back. Classic, the foundation, being a man, Mr. Sly on the route, Online with me today, I have the great distinction of really inviting and hosting on this program, musically speaking, a man who, when we say great, we're not talking about using the word in a gratuitous way. We're talking real great. Great musician, great human being. I call him Lowell the Great. Some people call him Baya, some people call him Sly. Lowell Sly Dunbar. A great honor to have him. Lloyd,
the great Clyde Mckenzie. See how the groove on the move, man.
Oh, hey, you know that tune that body the Lowell.
No, I want to say, when I cut the tune today, I was mixing it, When I was telling Beanie Man about the tune, but he have the sense of humor, he was riding on a bike, And ball with him, I mix the tune, and I'm stopping the studio, and I'm listen, I'm saying, give me a mic, I'm going inside, and I'm trying something that never work, And nobody not said nothing to Beanie, because that's Beanie Man. Nobody said a word. Everybody sit down, and him said, I'm going again. I'm going again, and him start. Is this Sly Robbie? Oh, him so clever, Him right off of the piano, like tum, tum, tum. This Sly Robbie, tum, tum, tum. I just lost it right. So him play with the piano instead of coming on the first beat. I'm so boy, a DJ are clever. I'm too good, man. And it was one take. I would have said, that's it, done.
But this was a classic which you made into another classic because this is the old Herman Shuffle. I used to remember.
It's really a foreign tune, I don't know the player. And Scatterlights did a version, I call it Bateman Scam.
Yes.
And that's a Bateman Shuffle. And then I called Ansi Cullen was talking one Sunday morning, no. I was start talking about this. I said, could make a good version of this song now. I said, really? So I went to studio choose a man and just cut the track.
No, so you talk about Ansel Collins because your relationship with him goes a long way back. Tell us a little bit about your affiliation with Ansel Collins.
Well, my Ansel Collins go way back because when I was almost 14 years old, I just started playing in a band called Yard Rooms, And Lloyd Parks and Rancho was playing in RH Invincible. So one day I left rehearsal at yard rooms. I went down to look for them, and the drummer was playing was a drummer by the name of Thin Leg, a very good drummer. But he left to go and do something, and then Anthony said to me, "Can play drum?" I said, "I couldn't start playing." And after play, say like I'll play, and then I used to do learn refrigeration at telephone calculator. So I was there one day, and Anthony called me and said, "You want to play session?" And I said, "Yeah, man." So I went to Federal Studio, and the first song cut was a song called Night Doctor. He came out as the upsetter, and Lee Perry, he was every day, the slide, I put out slide Dunbar first song, which is right. He came out as the upsetter, but it was produced by Ansel Collins. It was Ansel Collins' song, and he sold it to Lee Perry. By the time I was going on 15, Ansel Collins called me again and said, this time I was playing in RH Invincible, and he said, listen to this idea, and he started playing on double barrel piano. And I said, well, that's good. And we went to rehearsal today, and after about 11, me and him started working on the song, and then live parts, we come in and play guitar, a rehearsal. And it took us a week to compose the thing, and then we cut it like the Monday night down by Dynamics. And I walk home because bus had stopped run by 9 o'clock. So, but them time then it was with a dog and duppy, so just walk home. So all of us were going in the same year, so just walk home. And I told them that it was going to be a million seller, and they laughed at me the whole night. Every time I answer talk about that, I said, boy, tell them that's going to be a million seller, but they laugh at me. I said, yeah. So he was the one who kind of guided me to the music business, and when I used to play in RH Invisible, I couldn't play that flow show thing very good. So Ansel Collins can play drums too, so we used to play that part, and then he give him back the drum, and I play for the dance music and things like that,
I'm going to go to double barrel, and then I'm going to ask your brethren Lloyd to come in because you and him have a long association, and I also give Dr. Hickling a chance to talk to you, Lloyd.
Okay.
All right.
I am the magnificent. I'm back with the Shackable Soul Boss, most thundering, storming, sound of soul. I am W-O-O-O, and I'm still here again. Hey. One time. Work it on, baby. Much. All right. Hit me one time. Break it up on me. Pressure and slide.
Double barrel. Ansel Collins, Sly. It proved that you were not only a great musician, but you were a visionary. You could see you were a reader man.
You could see. And that's not really a reader man, but we was exposed to someone's music when we were young,
Yes.
So once you hear certain beat and certain progression, you can know that's a hit. So I told him it's going to be a hit, and it went to number 1 in England for a couple of weeks, and it went to number 22 in America. And funny things, a lot of people think My Boy Lollipop went to 1, but it was Double Barrel that went to 1, first number 1 for Trojan record.
Lloyd, I don't hear you.
Yes.
So I know you want to talk to your brethren.
The first thing I have to say, stand by this man. The first thing I have to say is that if it were not for this man that we have on this show, I probably would not have been in the music business.
You say that all the time.
Because, no, it's the truth. Because the very first thing I ever did in the business of music was through Sly, Sly and Robbie, when they gave me and a couple of my friends the privilege to put on, for the first time, a concert called the Taxi Connection 10th anniversary. And the very first thing I ever did, I never knew anything about music business until I did that show.
So it was
And
any
that
good
show
them time
taught
to
me.
slide?
No, wait, what happened, you know why we end up doing the show? I think they couldn't get no sponsors, you know? When the Max now used to check me at my gates in, I'll call it Patrick City, and then he said, can't get any sponsor. And I said, Robbie, I can't get any sponsor. Robbie said, let's not do the show, man. Anything. So we decided to just do the show for them because we said they were trying and nobody was
Oh,
sponsored.
Lloyd, them was trying. So
yeah, we get Greg Rice, we get tennis sponsor.
You
The
see,
big name.
you see
And
what
nobody-
kindness can do? No, and that I think is something that people speak about you a lot, Sly, your kindness as an individual, as a person. Many people, and it is far and wide. People say, boy, Sly, the man, him just helpful, him just willing to assist people. That's a tribute, especially if a man was so great. But, Debra.
It's a great.
There are two things that have come up as I listen to you speak, and to be in the presence of genius. It is pure genius, you know. And yes, I'm being groupie-esque at the moment because this is remarkable. But two things that kind of emerged for me. The first was when you said, I knew it was a hit. I knew you saw the value in it. What was it? What is it that when you actually hear it, you know? What is
See,
it?
when doing music like creating from nothing, and you're going to turn that nothing into 100. So once you start pulling the molecules together, the molecules, what I call the molecules, the piano playing, the style of the drum, the frequency, if you get in the right player to play the part. So what we did was we rehearsed that song for 1 week, 5 days, every evening, and we'd work out the part, work out the drum pattern, roll all the fills, and like part, we'd work out the intro like dooba 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 chang. And while we played that chang, I can tell you the secret why I played. There was a song called It's Your Thing by the Isley Brother, and it got tum, 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 tang, dum, dum. We went dooba 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 dum, tang. So we knew in the opening of the song, it would be a hit, a million seller.
You know, and the kind of second thing that which is kind of related to what we're talking about a little earlier, to know that Sly Dunbar in 2022 would start their story, and Lloyd Stanbury with not being able to get funding for an activity.
Yeah,
It's a matter of vision, you know. It's a matter of confidence, and it's a matter of
Sometimes you can feel that moment when it's happening. In the creative moment, come on to. We know it's there.
yeah.
So we move to it in the studio. We know it's there. You can pause a while, like a couple of months, and when it hits you, you can know. So when Max checked me in the morning and said, no sponsor, I said, really? So I said, I was going to see Robbie later. So I said, Robbie, no sponsor. So I said, let's do the show. You know, when I didn't know that the arena would be so filled. When I got there late.
Suppose you didn't do it, eh?
No, I say, this is why, there's a little voice keep telling me, do it, you know. And when I got to the arena, I saw this long line going, so I thought someone was keeping our stadium, you know. I said, what is all these people, you know? I didn't know we could pull arena, tell the truth. You know, I didn't know that. So I walk around and I couldn't get inside, and then...
And Lloyd make a bag of money.
No.
No.
Nothing like that.
I want to tell you, I don't think the bar make any money because nobody could move. No, serious. In the concert, when I got in, somebody lift me up and pushed me. And they was telling my mom, and she got pushed me. My daughter and my grandmother was there from 6 o'clock. They left early, and they got seat and everything. Nobody could move. Everybody was sitting on the stage. The stage bent like this. Nobody could move. So, and everybody says that it's the best one night show ever happened in Jamaica.
Boy, that was a baptism there, Lloyd. Your first
Oh,
outing, and you're going nice, man.
Thing I ever did, everything
So
I
then I
ever
said,
did in music.
like, why don't I come in the music industry? Because we need a lawyer, we need somebody that can help us to really achieve.
So I think your thing worked out because you were looking ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking for person would think have the ability to make the industry a better industry. So
Right.
musicians, artists could go on them and
Nice,
put it
nice.
them, they could help you. So, but there was no one. We always have to try and find someone in America. I think this is why the music industry in Jamaica is like it is. Everybody, artist and musician in Jamaica has been wrong.
You
When I
s-
say
you
wrong, not I
Yeah.
mean because there was no one to look after them.
you
So there was
Exploitation at the.
foreign, so we went to a foreign person to do it, and they pretend sometimes they are with you, but really and really they were not with you. But like of being a Jamaican, you know the lifestyle and the culture. That's why you should really get involved and try to help all of us to really achieve what is there for us to achieve. You know?
you reference Lloyd Parks, and he was
Yeah,
integral
man.
to your
Yeah,
coming into this business.
yeah, man. He's a teacher. He's a man.
That's a man who brought you into the business.
I could say that, you know, because when I left school, I used to go Trenchtown Comprehensive. I went to the primary comprehensive, and you know, walking down the road, you see so many artists, and the groove was in Trenchtown. Anywhere you turn, there's a groove, and we went and checked Ken Booth to come and do a concert. It was coming on to holidays, and went down to Denhamtown, and Ken Booth said, "Yeah, man." So he came with the Gaylords band. So when they string up and start playing, and they're playing a puppet and a string, so Ken Booth, wicked. Yeah. I stood with Willie Williams because we're in the same class with Willie. Why don't know this thing, and I'm told him, I come back in school. Man. Music me I play because see I can them sounds. I'm say really, so I'm say, yeah man. So when I went home now, holiday and thing, you know, so I tell my mom, I said, well, I don't want to go back, so I want to do music, but I was supposed to go KC. And all my friends come over the KC time in front of me when my light passed and the mango tree, I beat it, you know. I'm glad, you know, but I smile because when I watch the light pass, I come across, come over the guitar where I'm sure, just smile at the cast, yeah man, she go get some music to this. So we had this big tape recorder. So when light come now, string up the tape recorder and the record, and I was playing on the tape cover like a drum. You know, access live this thing and then we play back what we done and everything. And so really, so that is where the whole timing and the whole thing started because we had this tape recorder in front of us. So we were recording and playing back everything. So some of the standard light wrote, we had it on that like a tape recorder, you know. So my mother used to sit there and watch us play, you know. We do that every day for around 2 years. Every day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Christmas, Boxing Day, me and Lady under the mango tree.
No, Sly. Of course, when you speak of Sly, the natural progression is Sly and Robbie. And
Yeah.
people have wondered, how did that happen? I think you have said it was a tit for tat kind of meeting that you had with him.
Okay, I can tell you. What that means like yeah, down by Randy's Northbury is a meeting place of musicians. If you're a producer trying to produce, you have a record on there, and then the countryman will come in and rush to him and say, boy, I want a new record. And he probably go inside Randy and ask him, what better record put on money make him hear it. That him say, I like it, you back off, and next month come and film record. So, but there's a meeting place, all of us is a stand and wait for session. A man come to us, a man say, boy, it's awesome to wear this, and use the awesome. A man say, it's a slide. But by the time Channel 1 was kind of experiencing a move forward and everything, you know. So I used to play tit for tat at night time. So Tota and I had played a song called Money in My Pocket for Joking, the original version. So Tota been telling Robbie about me, but Robbie used to play in a band called Evil People next door to Tit for Tat. So Tota would tell Robbie, let's go and listen to Slide, let's take a drum over there. And Robbie came over and listened and said, boy, I know him so on a way. So Robbie tells Bonelino, book a session for me and him. So he booked the session and we went and played a song. I think it's that John Old song called Too Good to Be. You forgot or something like that. And we played it and it came out really good and Bonelli kind of liked the combination of me and Robbie. So I went on a tour with Dennis Brown, and the thing was Dennis Brown and Biggie and Soul Syndicate. And when I came back, Robbie was still at Peter Touch wanted to put a band together, and if I would come and play. I say, yeah, man. So when I came back from the tour, Dennis Brown, Robbie, and Peter, I went up to New York to meet with Mick and Keith, and then they came back and said
That's
everything was cool.
Mick Jagger and Keith
Yeah,
Richards
the
from the
great Mick Jagger.
Rolling Stones.
Yes, and then they came back and Robbie said, well, they're gonna need to cut an album. So This is where we cut the first album with Peter, Equal Rights, and we did that at Randy's. And we started touring from there. So the whole development came out like Robbie and myself wanted to push further because Bob Marley had Family Man and Carlton Bard. So me and Robbie like were the new rhythm section in Jamaica. So when it started touring, everybody wanted to see hear what we sound like everything. So we had to improve ourselves daily and think of ideas. So at them time, there was no budget on it to us, to share room and them things. So me and Rob wouldn't sleep at night with us, think of idea, listen to Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, all the big groups, and figure we can move, transform some things from their music to our music. And we used to link with Jeffrey Chong, Michael Chong. Robbie Lynn was in the band and everything. So Jeffrey Chong was a big part of Michael Chong, of the whole development, musical and everything. This is where we're about.
No, we talk about Jagger and Richards, and there is Bob Dylan, because you have done work with Bob Dylan. I mean, it's a question of who haven't you worked with, Sly, because you are not just reggae, you are music. Now let's hear the Mick Jagger. Sly.
All right. The Mick Jagger thing happened now. Like I just bought the Simmons electronic kit. Went to New York, bought it. We're gonna do Black Roll album, new album called Anthem that won the Grammy. So I said, Robbie boy, need to get a different sound from the drum because I don't like the way the drum has been recorded and some of the songs. So went to New York so much, bought the drum and flew down to Nassau. He came. So I was there taking the drums out of the box. So Mick was working on the Rolling Stones song at the same time. So he said, Sly, what's that? I said, it's a new drum. I said, well, Charlie wouldn't mind you dubbing that snare on one of the songs called Too Much Blood from that new thing. I said, no problem. So the first song I played it on was a song called Too Much Blood for Rolling Stones, And I said, Mick, that was good. And then after I went into the studio B, set up the drums, so it was time to cut Black Roll album, Anthem that won the Grammy. So, but we wanted a different sound, so we bought the drum and flew down to Nassau and we did a session. And then we were there, did that album and everything, and started touring and everything. And then Mick had asked us to play on his solo album now. That we flew us to Nassau again to do solo album with Jeff Beck and all these top people in this. And we did like 4 songs on the solo album and then went on tour. And then we were there working on Grace one night and we got this call.
Grace Jones.
Grace Jones and Denise Mills.
I remember Denise, blessed memory.
Yeah, she was there and she said, there's a call from Bob Dylan office. And Bob Dylan office. So me and Robbie looked at one and I said, I wonder what is this, because we don't think he will ask us to play for him because there are too many good musicians in America that Bob Dylan has worked with. He would call her and we say, return the call, and she called back and the person said, yes, Bob wants Sly Rob to come and do this album. So we flew up to New York, and I did the album, meet with Bob and everything, and meet with the producer, what's his name again, producer guy again. I can't remember his name. Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. He was the producer. And we did it at the power station in New York in 1983. And, Bob was there meeting him, and someone asked Bob why he sent to Jamaica for Sly and Robbie. And Bob said, like you listen to the work of them, they leave space for the vocal to come across, and they don't try to pull up everything, I said, really, that's what he said. I said, yeah, that's why he wants us to play. So we did this album called Infidel, which everybody was wondering what kind of album Bob Dylan was going to do because he's working with Sly and Robbie. So the whole industry was at a standstill waiting on this album to come. So when the album came out and dropped, everybody changed the thought and couldn't believe what they were hearing. The first song, I think one of the songs that came out, what I like is Don't Fall Apart on Me Tonight. From that, it's just 2 albums we did for him, one called Empire Burlix and Infidel. Infidel came out for him. We cut them on like 18 tracks. 16 tracks, something like that. But it was cool. I think that session was the easiest recording I've done in my life.
I wonder if I can squeeze in this Don't Fall Apart on Me Tonight right here.
Yeah, man. You can do that. Yeah, man.
Let me squeeze it in. Don't Fall Apart on Me Tonight from the album Infidel. Bob Dylan, the great Bob Dylan on vocals, and the legendary Sly Dunbar on drums, and Robbie Shakespeare on bass. Wow. Don't Fall Apart on Me Tonight. Musically speaking, that's the program. Special musically speaking with the man I call Lowell the Great, real legend. You know, many times we talk about great and we just use the word gratuitously. This time, when you say great, you really mean great. Lowell Slide Dunbar, the man I call Lowell the Great. Lloyd Stanberry's here, and so too is Dr. Debra Hickling Gordon. And, you know, Kevin is on the other side, as is Danelia. They're watching and they're enjoying every word that is being said right now. Sly, you spoke about the drum machine that you bought, you know, and the kind of dissatisfaction you had with the drumming pattern as it relates to Black Uhuru. I remember some years ago, you and I were sitting and we were having a marathon. It was in Florida, and we were talking. I think Willie Lindo was in that discussion. Dennis Howard too might have been in that discussion. And I remember you were telling us about the open snare drumming that you had come up with as a means of getting more oomph in the sound that you were having, because you didn't believe that the one drop approach was really getting to the rock people in particular. It didn't hit the stomach. You want to tell me a little bit? Did I capture what you say accurately there in what I said?
Yeah. I think what happened is we did Peter Touch Tour at Rolling Stone in 19. Even before that, what happened is I used to play at Tit for Tat Club, and start recording a channel. I want to start experimenting with sound, and we realized that I'd perform on a IPOC festival with Toots and the Maytals in London, and realized that we're playing acrostic never, impact on like the 50,000 people that was there. So when we start touring now with Peter, and
that wasn't a festival, because I know of a festival, rock festival that Copeland Forbes talks about, where
the Diamonds
people threw things pelted.
Yeah, that was the Diamonds,
right?
But this is Toots.
Oh, Toots, okay.
And then we start playing the Stone and realize that we're all musical, basically acrostic, So we realized the energy, and we were looking at Santana, Journey, and all these other rock group on the same bill with us, because we were open for the festival, the tour then in America with the Rolling Stones. So my Robbie was talking, I said, boy, we need to get some more energy out of reggae, because, we fill the 50,000 seat with the sound. The one job thing is light, unless you have a real good engineer who can bring up that drum in the mix, So when we came back home now, we start experimenting. So we start recording Black Hole. So we start using open snare. And we listen to the record and say, man, it's good. So we realized that we could get much more energy from the open snare instead of the acrostic. So we started recording a portion of our song, most basically Black Hole with that open snare to get the energy. So when you go on a concert, you don't have to worry about getting that energy. It's there on the record, So, and then we start using it. Sometimes we use acrostic still, and then it's that internet people start hearing this sound, and it's but we were really trying with Black Hole, because they had this kind of they're different sound and different look from everybody. And then, but when I bought the drum, it wasn't a drum machine that went international. It was the Simmons drum, electronic drum, that took down there. So, and this is what has happened to the music today. To get energy from it, you have to go open snare.
Sly, you were an integral part of Black Uhuru. You and Robbie were added to the original trio. Even the Grammy Award winning album, Black Uhuru is represented as Sly and Robbie is a part of Black Uhuru, right? But the falling apart of Black Uhuru was one of the great tragedies of our music, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was really, really sad, because how Black River came along, of course, started working with him. Was Michael Rose I was working with, because Michael Rose's brother and I are a good friend, really good friends. Because Michael Rose really started out as a DJ. Bolivar used to have a little students' college where they used to go around there at night. And we'd record song like Woman and General Patrol and everything around there. Michael used to DJ and Michael brother used to sing. So I wanted us to kind of bring Michael brother into the production side of thing as a producer to produce Michael. But he died in a crash. So when Michael came and checked with the man at Channel 1, he said, Joe died. I said, really? So I said, I'm here every day, so if he can check me, and start checking me, you know. And also I record one or two songs and then with him and everything. And he said they had this one called Ducky, and he said, you can't carry Ducky along. I said, carry anybody you want to carry. So, but Ducky said that this group called Black Hole. And I said, well, we don't see you trying out something, you know, we can just record some stuff and see what it sound like. And so we started recording a portion of the song like Let Him Go version of a Wheeler song, record a version of No, 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 and record a version of Sunshine, just to test the vocal sound. And everybody seems to like it. So I said to Michael, you know, we don't have to cut any more cover song right now. We can just go for the original. So he came up with tune like Plastic Smile, Shiner Girl, and
Plastic Smile, yes.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah,
the abortion. Yeah, those are some Black Uhuru classics.
Okay, so we gave it a special sound with the open snare. So the record industry changed a bit because this was the sound coming. Was a group, and then we gave it to Uri to play for a year. To play the song because we didn't have enough money to put out the record. Them times it's kind of expensive to put out a record, you know. So we gave it to Uri to play the dub play for a year. He alone had it. So and then we gave the single General Penitentiary to Federal to put out for us. And then Black Hood just explode.
No. The thing though with Black Uhuru is that Blackwell seemed to have invested a lot of confidence in the group and a lot of hope. And you and Robbie, I mean, as far as Compass Point, it was almost as if Blackwell had decided to create Compass Point to accommodate all of what you were doing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Compass Point, the first time I went to Compass Point, it was in 1978 to do a diamond recording called Planet Earth for Virgin. And then I went back there when Chris, we were in New York and Chris had called Robbie himself to have a meeting and he was telling us about this Grace Jones, this Jamaican girl who lives in Paris and she's a disco girl, but he wants to go a different direction. So he gave us some album, which up to this day we haven't listened to this album. So time to go to Nassau in 1980. So we flew down to Nassau with Barry Reynolds, Wally Badarou from France, Africa, and Barry from Europe, from England, Mikey Chow, Sticky Thompson, myself and Robbie from the Jamaican side. So flew into Nassau, don't know what we're gonna do. So everybody was saying, should we rehearse? Robbie said, no, let's go into the studio, listen to the demos, and we just rehearse and cut anything we cut, we just cut it. So say, that's a good idea, Robbie. So we went into the studio. We saw this big picture of Grace Jones across the studio. We look up, everybody could see her, and then never met her before. And then we were inside the studio, and then Amazing Grace walking, and we look at her, look at the picture, and say, wow, same exact person. And then, you know, she feel good and say hello because she feels good being amongst Jamaican musicians now and everything. And so we kick off with a song called Warm Letter Red, and Chris Blackwell couldn't believe it. He said, wow, and the magic just started from there.
Sly.
Yes.
You as a drummer, yeah, you play your live drums still, and you play your drum machine. When you're in studio, yeah, recording, you have a preference whether you go live or you go with your drum machine?
Well, all right. You see, with the kind of recording that's being done today, you know, the technology and the electronics that's come to control it, right? In the time when I was playing, I prefer the live drum. Even today, I still prefer the live drum because I have some pattern and some style that I will put on record it, and I can't get a chance to play because, you know, in the days when Blackwood, there was only live recording being done. So you like a recording like 20 songs a day. You have to leave from Shannon when you go to Joe Gibbs on a Thursday, you record 15 songs by 7 o'clock. And go to the next studio the next day, you record another 10. So you were playing, but in this time now with the whole industry, most of the studios hasn't got this kind of playing ability no more. So the music is kind of down. It's not creative no more. Everybody rely on the computer and the drum machine to help them. So I kind of miss playing, and most people want to see me play live in the studio because it's just like we just come up with some crazy beat which you can program sometimes. But I have to be a part of the technology and the electronics because I didn't make the machine and everything. The manufacturer make it, so they make it and sell it other people. Some big musician, top big musician, and they're using it. So I have to use it too. You know, so
Yeah, but isn't there a difference with a drummer, a real drummer, playing a drum machine, as
yeah,
against someone who just
I
has
look
a
at
drum machine and is not a real drummer?
I look at the drum machine as a drum, and I'm playing it. When I'm playing, I sit bending like I'm really sitting behind my drum. So I see my drum set focused in front of me, and I listen to what the percussion person play, and I program the percussion. Well, that person who's not a drummer doing the drum machine, he can come up with a good hits, but then he probably be limited to where he can go with the drum machine. With me having a drum machine, I have no limit. But I really prefer the live drum. So it's a different, like me as a drummer, no programming machine. Because like even all those Lucian song, like Lord Give Us Strength, it's a drum machine and nobody could tell it's a drum machine playing. That sound like me playing because I try and get my feel into the machine, you know, all the time.
Plastic Smile, Black Uhuru, Sly and Robbie. Whoa. Black Uhuru, Michael Rose on lead vocals. Hear it. This talk with Sly, you can't have one episode with Sly Dunbar. No, it's impossible because we haven't even touched the surface. I mean, let's talk a little bit about you and the Hickling brothers, Jojo in particular, and what that meant in terms of the development of roots rock music, Sly. Talk a little bit about that. What was happening?
The Channel 1 saga, like I was playing tip of that as usual. They would come up. I used to do session for a lot of people at Channel 1. So Jojo and Ernest sometimes would come up to the club on a Friday night when we were playing on Saturday night, you know. I remember Ernest asking me, you don't make any money because I used to take the drum from tip of that, take it to Channel 1, take a taxi home, take a taxi from home to the studio and set up before showtime and everything like that. So answer Collins, I said to Ernest, why don't I let us come down and play some rhythm for you and everything? So I said, yes. So we went on a Sunday and Live Park was supposed to play, but I think Live Park was in England, so it didn't make the session. So it was Debra with some cut a song called It's a Shame. Ranchi was playing guitar and Eric Fred was playing guitar, and then Ranchi dubbed the bass back, and then we said to Jojo, if this song is not a hit, we can close on the studio. So
boy, you was really sure when the hits them coming, boy.
yeah, so we said to him, we thought that can close on the studio. So but before that, no, Ernest and I work on the drum song for Channel 1. It's been like a couple of years we were working on it to get it right, and like Motown or like Philadelphia International. So we said, this is not a hit, can close. So It's a Shame came out, and it was a big hit. So Jojo paid us some more money again because prediction came right, you know, and then there was another song, there was what they call Calling You, and it was a big hit. And then there was like a kind of break, and then we had asked Ernest for some free time at the studio. So myself, Ranchi, Answer Collins, and Dougie, Brian, I got a free time. So each of us cut a rhythm for ourselves. And then it was time that we're going to make a rhythm for Ernest, you know, I said. So we made that rhythm called Right Time Rhythm for Ernest. I said, this is your rhythm. But Ernest couldn't believe us because the rhythm sounds so good and everybody would take the better.
That's the right time with Mighty Diamonds.
Yeah, I said, no, this is your rhythm. So when Jojo came in the evening, said, Jojo, slide and make this rhythm for us. I said, it's also, it was just really, so Jojo came laughing at the boy rhythm, but him love the rhythm. Then what happened is, I did try to come with a different drum style because I remember when I was doing a session, Herman Chinloy came to me and said, I should play like Santa. I said, I can't play like Santa. And, you know, he was kind of putting me down, like what I'm doing at work. And I said, I can't play like Santa. So we decided to get some time for ourselves so we got freedom to play what we want to play. So this is where the right time came out of a session. So if you listen to the right time, there's a special drum thing. So when Jojo put us on, it was a big hit immediately. So a lot of people thought it was some kind of delay thing on the board playing it, and then they realized I was playing. So Jojo said to me, Ernest said, well, okay, just put everything into high gear and slide, everything sounds good, just take it and we just start revolutionizing Channel One. So
The Revolutionaries. But I want to hear Right Time from the Mighty Diamonds. The Mighty Diamonds. Sly Dunbar on drums. Right Time. Channel One production. Boy, you know, when I pass Channel One and I see the shell of a place, I mean, tears come to my eyes because, you know, when you think, we talk about cultural preservation, and if we really attached value to things that are important, something like that should have been properly preserved, you know.
yeah,
You know, money should have been spent to make sure that that stay alive, because that's a living museum.
Absolutely.
And that could have made listen to the songs that come out of that place. I mean,
Yeah, man.
it is absolutely unbelievable. When you
the drum
I was
sound,
actually listening to Sly speak, and I thought to myself, the value alone in the stories and preserving the stories and creating content from the stories and I mean,
that's another that's another different dimension we're going down, Debra, because that is something that I believe passionately in.
You see, so what I'm trying, the music industry get around, you know, nobody else will invest in the music industry, you know. Most of the time it's just we going towards taking a little money. Like even the Right Time and those Black Horse, and we're done on free time from the studio, you know. We got free time from Georgia because we're playing there for him. But there was no money to be able to put, but nobody put money. I mean, you have to say, no respect to the China people and some money and invest so we could develop our skill as musicians. And they could hire us to play, and from Channel One they get benefit, like we get free time sometime and everything like that. I could get to use a track that I got paid for from Jojo. So Jojo was like a different producer, you know. He could give us a rhythm sometime again and things like that, you know. So, you know, there was nobody invested, and nobody believed the music would have gotten this big. But I knew it would have gotten big. I see it. Because if I was 14 years old, I would have been a million selling record. A Dynamics at 14 years old. But I think it would get bigger.
and it was like kind of a different thought process about investment. You talk about the Chinese becoming involved at, you know, at that level.
No, and that's another story.
Absolutely.
Because when you remember that you're talking about people like Leslie and Jojo, Leslie Kong and Jojo, and all of these people, Yap and all of these people, many of them, I mean, they played, I mean, you talk about the Chins, Miss Pat and Vince. I mean, the contribution remember, the start of the Jamaican sound system is a man by the name of Tom Wong.
Byron Lee and all.
You understand? Tom Wong is the first sound system that, you know, Tom the Great Sebastian.
All right. Did you know that Leslie Kong was the first investor in island music, island records?
Yes, he was one of the earliest investors in Ireland, and that was how he was able to get some of those songs become a hit, like Israelites, you know.
Yeah.
So he and if you notice, a lot of his songs were on the Holiday Come soundtrack. You know, Leslie was definitely a pivotal person. I mean, he started the Bob Marley career because that's where Bob recorded his first two songs. And I mean, Jimmy Cliff started, he maybe didn't start his career there, but I mean, a significant part of Jimmy Cliff's career really unfolded there. And we also...
Jackie Opel.
And we also know Toots had a great...
Jackie Opel was there.
Huh?
Jackie Opel.
Jackie Opel, yes. All of those.
Jackie Edwards.
Jackie Edwards.
And I'm hearing the stories, and I'm seeing the documentaries, and I'm seeing the movies, and I'm seeing the podcasts, and I'm seeing... I mean...
No, because I mean, I think we have underestimated the role and the contribution that the Chinese actually made to the music. And that's another program. All entirely.
Whole other program.
They did a Grown Nation downtown. The Chinese influence. Sly, you were a part of that because
I was part of the China.
Yes, but the Black and Chinaman, because I remember I was on a panel with Miss Pat and Christian, and I was the only Black and Chinaman on that one. But it was an interesting situation because here it was, the Chinese. But Sly, we can't do one with Sly Dunbar. It's impossible we have to go again because this is the story of our music. And
No, I said to some, we need to get a database or something to put Jamaican history, the music inside it, that people could tap in it and see who did what. Nobody knew that Lexington was the first investor in Ireland, because nobody knew that maybe I played my first in Million Selling song when I was like, before I reached 15. Nancy Collins is the only person as an instrumentalist to have a number one record in the world.
Is there an investor out there? Is there an investor out there who has the vision that Sly had?
A lot of people don't believe in the music because the music kind of, I mean, the talent comes from the ghetto.
I tried to get Debra to say it today.
But the issues of marginalization, that's a whole other show.
Because the provenance of the people who are involved in the music, the creators, is a big factor in terms of how the investment is flowing.
Yes.
Right? Because and we have to
call a spade
a spade. The man them coming from down south.
Yeah, he was the one who kind of so the young artists coming from the ghetto, they go to him and say, "We song good, I record it, you know."
But listen, this is too much. We have to have another one.
But there was some black producer who was good too, you know. Yeah, man. But the China people.
So we're going to have to have another one with the legendary Sly Dunbar. Lloyd Stanberry was here. Dr. Debra Hickling Gordon.
I told him from the beginning, say it takes you need around 4 hours.
What is it, Sly?
He said he told it from the beginning. Needed 4 hours.
Yeah, but me and you have to talk. You know when me and you talk. I mean, we talk through all our whole night, you know. Just talk where we talk music. Sly Dunbar, Lloyd Stanberry is here. Dr. Debra Hickling Gordon, Danila Doyle, Kevin Williams and Tristan, and of course my 9/10 is over. Maxine is over the other side. Musically speaking, next week we'll be coming back. We have to have Sly Dunbar back again with us, and I'm going to come to that. I have to find that conference that you have because I want to find some of that money.
ICEC 22 Invest South Collective on all platforms.
I want to find some of that money. Sly Dunbar, a pleasure. Lowell the Great, musically speaking.
We tried Mckenzie the Great.